For the last 60 plus days, I've been wearing both the Whoop on one hand and the Apple Watch on the other, looking a little bit like a freak, but in the name of science to check out, which one is the best. Um, I was thinking to do a review in this video of the Whoop and compare it, naturally to the Apple Watch. Um, but yeah, like first of all, like I am also building similar type of functionality into my own app, but I'm using the Apple Watch, mostly because I believe the Apple Watch, a lot of people have it already for other use cases, not just for the fitness tracking. But anyways, this is a review of the Whoop and what we can use, or what it does, and what I think is the most useful functionality of it, what I sort of think of the price, and so on. So to start with, right, the Whoop has sort of a business model that you don't have to buy the watch, but on the other hand, you don't own, well, you own the watch, but it's useless if you can't actually get the data, and you need a subscription every month to get the data. I believe a subscription costs $20 per month, which, I mean, the Apple Watch, this one, I mean, it's like 800 bucks, right? So you could use this one for like 2 years plus 3 years maybe, right? Um, and maybe you could use this probably, you could probably use this for a longer time than 2 years, probably, right? So in terms of that, you probably get more value out of the Apple Watch, right? But it's still like a decent, if you're into fitness and you want to get very good software. I think honestly, Whoop is state of the art. There's no sort of question about that. Their software is great. And the actual watch itself is very lightweight. You charge it very easily. You don't even have to take it off. You always wear it. You can sleep with it with no problem. Like it's a honestly great sort of compact form, um, compared to this, right? Like this one is much bulkier, but on the other hand, you also have a screen. You can do a lot of stuff with it. I can use my card. I can pay for it. I can put cellular on this. I can call with it. I can, when I go out running, I can listen to music. Don't have to bring my phone. It tracks steps. This one doesn't track steps, by the way, which is a completely separate thing. But either way, basically though, like what I wanted to talk about is what does it actually give you? Okay, so I think um, 99% of the Whoop functionality, honestly, is tracking HRV, resting heart rate, and sleep, and that's kind of like the primary use case, I would say, and analyzing that for you in a nice way. So every day you wake up, you get a recovery score, which they don't say exactly how they compute, but it's based 99% likely. It's based on your HRV value, and your maybe a little bit of on your resting heart rate, and maybe a little bit on your sleep, in terms of sleep, REM and deep sleep. But exactly what factors go into that or how much, we don't know. What Whoop tells us though is that they do it during the last deep sleep stage during the night, which, by the way, when I compare the Apple Watch data I get and the Whoop data I get, it's quite different for the sleep. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that I could get 40 minutes deep sleep on this, and I could get 4 hours on this, or 3 hours. Like it's a huge, sorry, not deep sleep. I mean deep sleep plus REM sleep, so restorative sleep. I could get 4+ hours on this, and I could get 1 hour on this. So it could be a huge difference. Um, and I don't know which one is the most accurate, but anyways, that's made me question a little bit on the sleep accuracy part. The duration, though, pretty much the exact same. The activity tracking on the Whoop is honestly, uh, I believe it is very good. You don't have to actually manually input stuff. I could be wrong sometimes, but most of the times it's very good. However, what I notice is that when I manually input the Apple Watch data, when I like manually open a workout, then uh, the the Whoop will actually read the Apple Health data that was written and use those times to extract the workout. So Whoop is kind of cheating a little bit. It's not using. I should probably find a way to disable that sync so that it doesn't actually get access to it. Um, but yeah, like I think the absolute main functionality of the Whoop that it gives you is those values that I told you, that it measures your resting heart rate during sleep, it measures your HRV during sleep, it measures your sleep score, and the sleep score we also don't know exactly what it's based on. Mostly, I believe it's duration, but it also keeps track of some type of consistency, that you went to sleep the same time as you did previous days, um, that you had good restorative sleep, and that I think those are the main sort of things that it does, and it gives you sort of a great visualization. If you look at my sleep performance, you can see mostly I'm getting like 80 to 100. Um, Mostly I'm getting pretty good amount of sleep, 6.5 hours, 8 hours, almost nine, or sorry, those are the sleep needed. But we can see that they usually they follow pretty closely to what I'm actually getting. Time in bed, usually the average seems to be here about 22:40 or 11 p.m. almost, and wake up usually at around 7:30. So that's, I mean, it's interesting to analyze these things. And also from the recovery, we can see recovery graphs. We can see how HRV has varied, resting heart rate, as well as strain, which when it comes to actually strain is kind of a made up metric, to be honest. It doesn't really tell you, uh, like if we actually look at HRV, that's a solid, scientifically valid metric to use. And if you combine HRV and resting heart rate into a recovery score, you're still using sort of backed up methods, right? That actually make sense. The strain score, I would say, is, I mean, it's not, there's no sort of validity to the score. It doesn't really mean much, which probably is why people actually don't use it that much, right? It doesn't really tell you that much. They have all this kind of fancy stuff where it vibrates if you reach the strain that it recommends for the day. But since there's no scientific validity to any of the strain score, to be honest, I mean, why would I push myself to ensure that I get the strain score that you're telling me to? Why would that be something that I would even strive to do? Um, doesn't really make sense. And also, you give me a strain score every day based on my HRV values, but most people don't even exercise every day. There should be some type of cadence if you exercise X amount per week so that they give you. And by the way, it's also based on the average heart rate. So, yeah, I mean, like if you analyze it a little bit more deeply, strain, it's a cardiovascular strain based on basically how much your average heart rate has been increased compared to your resting heart rate. That's what I assume that they're doing. Uh, but honestly, what it tells you in concrete, practical terms is that, hey, if the strain score is high, you probably did something that day. And if it's low, you probably didn't do much. So you can track which days you're more active than others. That's basically the use case of the strain score. So compared to sleep score, which also I told you we don't know exactly what they do, but it's based on some type of valid underlying marker, right? The recovery also, uh, but mostly, right? If you look at the sort of hardcore people who use Whoop for actually health tracking, they most likely just you look at the actual HRV and resting heart rate values. Those two are the main, and the sleep. So HRV, resting heart rate, sleep. Those three. If you get those three, that's the best. You can you can deduce everything else yourself from those. All right. So if we get those three, how do we get them? So what Whoop does is that it measures it during sleep, which, by the way, has a lot of flaws. So you actually cannot really do, I mean, you can, but it'll be significantly worse than if you would measure it in the morning manually. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, first of all, um, your metrics, uh, you want to know how ready you are to tackle the day, right? That's what you want to know from your HRV. What you're getting if you're measuring during your latest deep sleep cycle is how ready are you to tackle the next day if you would like use that metric, right? During that sleep stage. Um, so, for example, let's say that you drank alcohol, which a lot of people who use Whoop notice that it significantly worsens their HRV, but it might only worsen the HRV values during that part of the sleep cycle. Uh, Sleep is a part of recovering, right? So if you sleep through the night and you wake up, maybe you've recovered from that stress of the alcohol you put on your body, but the HRV from the Whoop will tell you, hey, you should take a very relaxed day today because your HRV values suck, right? So it puts a little bit of a incorrect way of gauging um, if you do it that way. The nice thing is that it's very convenient. You don't have to think about it much. You get it directly from you just wake up and you look at it, right, and it'll calculate it for you. You don't have to do any manual work. The Apple Watch, I can do that as well. I have to do manual calculations, obviously, but the Apple Watch, I can also do a manual reading. I can do that when I wake up, and I can get sort of more structured, in my opinion, at least. So, additionally, I think there are. So, anyways, I think using it during measuring during sleep is actually not the best way. I mean, like based on that what you just said, but also the fundamental thing is that it's not what you want to track the actual recovery you get during your sleep. You want to know how recovered you are when you wake up so that you're ready for the day, right? That's the closest sort of marker to when you're going out in the world that day, right? And gonna do stuff. So, for example, if you eat a very late meal and you use the Whoop, it'll probably impact your recovery scores much more than what your manual reading during the morning, which is the most accurate way to do it, would actually tell you. Uh, so that way, the analysis can sometimes be a bit flawed in what you should and should not do to increase your recovery and what leads to improvement. Um, because what you really are optimizing for is your recovery score during or HRV value during your deepest sleep cycle. And it also comes into question, what if you're moving around during sleep? It might not be as accurate, or what if the sleep cycle is actually incorrect? Maybe the HRV values differ depending on your sleep cycle stage. And as I already alluded to earlier, these two are the best sort of have the best algorithms for sleep right now, and they are completely opposite of each other as to what we actually get. So if we're going to have high trust in the actual measurement, which we are relying on to decide, at least according to Whoop, right, if we should exercise that day or not, or how hard we should even exercise that day, we need to make sure that the underlying metric, the sort of value that we're using, needs to be a lot, like very reliable and accurate. I don't think that it satisfies those constraints, and there might even be an issue with using HRV. Like HRV might itself be a difficult one to rely on conclusively. So what I do is that I also obviously take into subjective feeling into account. If I feel bad and I check my HRV values and say that they're actually good, I might I'll use that to probably go to the gym anyways, depending on how bad I feel, obviously. But same thing on the opposite side. If my subjective feel is that I feel great, but my HRV values are bad, I might use it to reflect a little bit more on that. But I would still push the workout that day. So what you really are looking for with these sort of tracking is long-term changes. And this is actually one thing that the Whoop is pretty nice at, which is that it gives you this monthly performance assessment where you can analyze. Basically, it gives you a comparison to the previous months. It gives you how many times you worked out this month, how many, which days you work out. So for me, for example, we can see that I work out Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, just based on the strength score. Their average is higher on those days. And similarly, we can see here, how does my HRV adaptation, how does that differ depending on the month? So the first month it was 50 and then it's 60 milliseconds. So I've been able to increase it. And similarly, my resting heart rate was 58 and now it's 57. So one beat lower in that case. One additional thing I wanted to note that I think is a little bit, honestly makes me dislike Whoop a little bit as well, which is the fact that they sort of advertise this idea that their users are more healthy. Actually, they even say this on their website, that their users are more healthy because they have lower resting heart rates than the average population. Now, I've measured manually every day, and the Whoop measures automatically during sleep, as we said, or as we have talked about. The Apple Watch, when I measure it manually when I wake up, it's always going to be a higher resting heart rate than during the night. And when I look at my heart rate during the night, it's usually about around there, which Whoop says, 56, 57, 55, depending on the night. But if you measure it during the morning, it'll always, after you wake up, right, you're not sleeping anymore, it's going to be about 8, 9 beats higher. So usually when I wake up, I look at my manual reading. By the way, before I even get out of bed, just when I'm laying in bed, just after I woke up, and I measure it manually for 5 minutes, which is quite long, by the way, you get a pretty accurate reading just after 2 minutes. But anyways, I do that, and I do that. I get about a 8, 9 beat higher than what I look at for the Whoop. So what I wanted to say here is that basically their conclusion, or their advertisement, kind of their proposition to you, is if you use this, you'll become healthier, kinda. Or they're implying underneath is that the population that uses a Whoop is healthier than the average population. But they're referring to that because of the resting heart rate being higher, and I already know that my resting heart rate is going to be lower using the Whoop because you measure it during the night. What data are you referring to when you say that? Like, how do we know exactly what resting heart rates people have during the night? So like I probably think it's true, right? The Whoop population is healthier. You have a healthy user bias, obviously. But I mean, even anyways, what I wanted to say is that the data might differ basically if you're using the Apple Watch or if you're using the Whoop, and depending on how you're measuring it. So it's not like we can just compare stuff, right? And with that said, though, the Apple Health is kind of horrible. The HRV values you get are pretty rubbish. It's like, to get a little bit detailed, but it's based on the SDNN formula of calculation, and they take snapshots during the day and put an average, which it does not give a reliable value for how ready you are at all to tackle more stress that day. So, not saying, basically, basically my conclusion is this: the Apple Watch is great. I think it's a better watch. I think the sensor on the Apple Watch is probably even better than the Whoop, honestly, when I compare the heart rates. It's feels more solid, feels better quality. It's bulkier though. The Whoop is very convenient, very nice to use, very easy to sleep with. I don't have a problem with that on the watch, Apple Watch, but some people might. I think the software on the Whoop is great. I don't think they're always scientifically validated like in many cases of what they are actually doing when it comes to strength score. I would like to see more openness as to what actually is behind those algorithms. But to conclude, the Whoop is state of the art software. You're getting definitely something that is very usable, very user friendly, very nice visualization. Apple Watch is not really there. Apple Health is not there at all. And so you I mean it's used, like I can, because I'm building my own app, right, using the Apple Watch, I can get that data and I can analyze it on my own. But for most people, they're not going to do that, right? So there are other apps as well that you can use that have Whoop similar type of functionality, but they don't, in my opinion, come close to what you get from a Whoop. Um, yeah, with that said, the data is there and it's being tracked and stored in Apple Health, so that when those things um, get better in terms of the software, uh, the data is there. So at least we have that kind of good thing with the Apple Watch. The hardware is good, but the software is not there yet. Here we have good hardware and great software. All right, that's it for this review. Hopefully this gave you a little bit insight. I was rambling a little bit throughout the video, but hey, if you have any questions, let me know, and hope to see you in the next video.